Welcome to Underworld UK, where Britain's darkest stories are brought to light. From the gritty streets of gangland London, Liverpool, Manchester and Birmingham, from Curtis Warren to the Cray twins to county lines and modern-day true crime, we cover everything. Bringing you new videos every week. Subscribe so that you'll be notified when the next video is put out.
In Britain, Kinder eggs are meant to hold small plastic toys, cheap surprises wrapped in foil designed for children and supermarket shelves. But in the West Midlands, police uncovered a far darker use for them. Hidden inside those yellow plastic capsules were rocks of crack cocaine, carefully packaged and distributed by a regional drugs network that believed it had found the perfect disguise. What looked innocent at first glance was in reality a calculated attempt to move Class A drugs under the radar right through towns already struggling with addiction and street-level crime. The gang operated across the Black Country in South Staffordshire, with activity centred around areas such as Cannock, Rugeley, Bilston and Walsall. For months, communities in these areas had seen a steady supply of crack cocaine and powder cocaine circulating on the streets. Dealers were well stocked, prices were stable, and supply lines appeared resilient. That consistency was no accident. Behind it was a group of men working together, sharing roles, moving drugs and cash between towns, and relying on vehicles rather than static dealing spots to avoid detection. Between April 2014 and August 2015, Staffordshire police began quietly building intelligence on the group. This was not a fast-moving investigation driven by one tip-off or a single arrest. Instead, it relied on patient surveillance, vehicle stops, and the gradual mapping of who was involved and how the drugs were moving. Detectives identified patterns, certain cars repeatedly travelling between the same locations, the same individuals appearing during suspected handovers, and regular movements through Cannock that suggested it was a key transit point rather than just another town on the route. The breakthrough came during one of several vehicle stops carried out in the Cannock area. Officers searched a car linked to the group and made a discovery that immediately set this case apart from dozens of other drug investigations. Inside the vehicle were Kinder egg capsules, but instead of toys, each contained crack cocaine, broken down into rocks ready for street-level supply. The concealment method was simple but effective. Kinder eggs were common, cheap, and unlikely to raise suspicion during a quick search. To the gang, they were just another tool. To police, they were unmistakable evidence of intent to supply. Once the Kinder eggs were discovered, the investigation escalated rapidly. Officers now had proof not just of possession, but of organised distribution and deliberate concealment. Search warrants followed, and attention turned to the individuals believed to be coordinating the operation rather than simply selling on the streets. At the centre of the conspiracy was Dharmesh Patel, identified as the leader of the group. Patel was not a background figure. He was hands-on, mobile and deeply involved in the movement of both drugs and money. When police finally moved to arrest him in Bilston, Patel tried to escape. As officers closed in, he ran, discarding parts of a mobile phone as he went. In a final act of desperation, he swallowed a SIM card, apparently believing that destroying communications data would weaken the case against him. It was a decision that spoke volumes about how seriously he took the threat of prosecution and how much incriminating material he believed was stored on that phone. It also failed completely. A search of Patel's home revealed the scale of the profits being generated. Officers seized £42,000 in cash, along with a luxury Rolex valued at £12,600. These were not the trappings of low-level dealing, they were the rewards of sustained organised supply, built on the steady distribution of crack cocaine into communities across Staffordshire. The money and valuables painted a clear picture of a man benefiting directly from the harm caused by the drugs he helped circulate. Further searches exposed even more disturbing quantities of drugs. At the address of Jermaine McFarlane, police uncovered a substantial stash: 278 individual rocks of crack cocaine, 143 grams of crack cocaine, and 170 grams of powder cocaine. This was not stock intended to last a few days. It was supply measured in weeks, possibly months, ready to be broken down and sold repeatedly at street level. Each rock represented another transaction, another addict, and another ripple of damage spreading through already vulnerable areas. As arrests continued, it became clear that this was not a loose association of dealers, but a coordinated conspiracy. Each man had a role, whether transporting drugs, holding stock, or facilitating sales. Some were trusted with large quantities, others were relied on for specific journeys or incidents. Even those described as having more limited involvement were still essential links in the chain that kept the operation running smoothly. The case eventually came before Stafford Crown Court, where all 8 men pleaded guilty to conspiracy to supply cocaine and crack cocaine. In court, the scale of the operation was laid bare. Prosecutors detailed the vehicle stops, the Kinder Egg concealment method, the cash seizures, and the sheer volume of drugs recovered during the investigation. It was clear that this was not opportunistic dealing, but a sustained criminal enterprise that had caused significant harm over a prolonged period. Sentencing was handed down by Judge Mark Aids, who delivered a stark warning about the consequences of crack cocaine. He told the defendants that crack causes untold misery, wrecks lives, and devastates communities, and that as a gang, they had contributed in large measure to that suffering. His words left little doubt about how seriously the court viewed the damage caused by their actions. In total, the 8 men were sentenced to 51 years and 7 months in prison. Patel received the longest sentence at 12 years and 6 months. Martin Charlson Kelly was jailed for 8 years and 1 month. Christopher Mayers and Andrew Junior Chambers each received sentences of 6 years and 3 months. Jermaine McFarlane was jailed for 6 years. Daniel Nelson received 4 years and 5 months. Matthew Adderley received 4 years, and Leon Morton received 4 years for his involvement in one of the incidents linked to the wider conspiracy. While Morton's role was more limited than others, the court still considered his actions serious enough to warrant a substantial custodial sentence. The arrests formed part of Operation Nemesis, a sustained police initiative aimed at dismantling organised drug supply networks across Staffordshire. For officers involved, the case represented more than just a successful prosecution. It was a chance to disrupt supply lines, remove key organisers, and send a message to other groups operating under the assumption that clever concealment would protect them from detection. Chief Inspector Jeff Knight described the outcome as a major success, emphasising that every one of the men played a significant role in fueling drug crime in South Staffordshire. He made it clear that this type of criminal activity would not be tolerated and that similar operations would continue in order to protect local communities. The Kinder Egg drugs gang believed they had outsmarted the system. They relied on familiarity, on the idea that something so ordinary would never attract serious attention. Instead, that very detail became the defining feature of their downfall. What began as an attempt to hide drugs in plain sight ended with 8 men behind bars, and a stark reminder that organised drug crime, no matter how inventive, leaves evidence behind. Kinder Eggs returned to being children's toys. The damage caused by the drugs hidden inside them, however, would linger long after the court doors closed.